Okay, good evening, everyone. It is I, Matt Yancic, your game master for tonight's fourth episode of Sword in the Darkness. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. The show has been doing pretty well, and when I say pretty well, I mean relatively speaking by my own standards. We are getting quite a few viewers and a lot for us in the chat, a lot of chatter in the chat. So I very much do appreciate that. I wanted to issue an apology for the last couple episodes. We have been having some audio issues. We're not quite sure what is causing them, though for the last 2 weeks or so, I've been looking at different aspects of the stream just to sort of make sure that what we're doing is not, or what I'm doing actually, because I'm the one streaming, is not totally screwy. Just to sort of warn you in advance, the issue that we've been having is that I have been crystal clear, but for some reason during the live broadcast, my players have, their audio has been very choppy. Luckily, however, I am using a redundant system, and I am recording everything through Zoom. So if there are any issues, I will be putting up a copy, maybe not as much fun as the live version, but a copy within 24 hours. So if you've been watching the show and you've been tuning into the episodes, and if there is ever any audio issues, you can always check the feed within about 24 hours, and I should put up a copy of the show that is exactly the same as it was live, except it is lacking the chat. For that, I apologize, but with that in mind, I just want to let everyone know that tonight we're kind of going commando. We're going to be doing everything very, very simple tonight. We have dispensed with the on-screen dice roller just because I'm worried that that's causing a conflict. I have actually switched microphones and switched my headset because I think that may have been a possibility as well. So we're going to kind of back up and go back to square one. Hopefully tonight will be nice and smooth and seamless, and then in the coming episodes we'll start to up our game a little bit and add some more stuff, some fancier stuff into the stream. Finally, with that in mind, one of the steps I took to change things here for the game was, rather than using online Google Docs notes for my GMing ease, I've decided to do it the old-fashioned way, and I printed out a document. So if you see me referring to a document from time to time and not using, ordinarily I actually use a teleprompter. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I actually do. I have a teleprompter up here. I've switched that off because I just want to make sure there aren't any conflicts and we just get a clean, smooth program tonight. So I may be looking down a lot at my notes for tonight, but I assure you we will find out the problem. We're going to root it out, get rid of it, and if anything, we're just going to play a game tonight. So now that I've gotten all of that boring stuff out of the way, I would like to introduce episode 4 of Sword in the Darkness. And to bring all of you up to speed, this morning, the nation of Frankreich was celebrating the Day of the Green, a remembrance of the fertile beauty of Mother Nature. It was meant to be a celebration, but years of isolation have sown seeds of discontent and discord among many of the people of Frankreich, and a band of Seraphinian revolutionaries intent on smashing the monarchy have interrupted the celebration with an attempt on the life of the provost Edward Pomeroy, leader of the capital city of Braves. Our 4 heroes attempted to stop the assassination, but the provost they seemingly saved did not seem to be the same man that they knew. Regrouping nearby, they brought with them 2 prisoners, a Seraphinian revolutionary and a mage of the arts cosmique. To sort things out, Danil Codier, a recent recruit of the Seraphinians that claims they are heroes fighting for the people, and Mage Laflame of the Guild of the Arts Cosmique, claims to have had no part in the assassination attempt. However, upon facing the stresses of an interrogation, burst into a viscous black ichor, not unlike that usually left by cosmic monstrosities. While Daniel Codier sets up a meeting with the Seraphinian revolutionaries, our four heroes huddle together and regroup at the Whistling Pig, a hangout for gang members, miscreants, and other lowlifes of Frankreich. No sooner had they ordered, however, than they were interrupted by an old adversary, Mage Marine Barbier, demanding to know why our heroes had kidnapped and murdered her colleague, Mage Laflame. In a tense meeting, the two sides struck a bargain. Mage Barbier would free a man falsely accused of murder, and our four heroes would go to the meeting of the revolutionaries, gleaning what information they could, and then report back. Later that night, upon Daniel Codier's return, our four heroes depart the Whistling Pig for a slightly more respectable establishment, a coffee house known as the Dome, in a trendy district near Villiers. While Francois Bernard remains outside to keep watch, Henri Ducasse, Elie Tussaud, and Philippe Mathieu put on masks and capes, enter the Dome, and then descend a dark stairwell. And so now let's meet our heroes. All right, everyone. So, in summary, to summarize the summary, you are currently split into two parties. So we have Francois Bernard, who's chosen to remain back and keep watch to make sure that there's nothing no good going on. And then Philippe, Henri, and Elie, who have decided to go with Daniel descending into the darkness to tonight's Seraphinian meeting. Francois, do you mind if we start with you tonight?
Sounds great.
So Francois, can you tell us a little bit about where you are and what you've decided to do here, and maybe even what a few of your goals are? And you don't have to, this isn't a test. We can kind of talk through this, but I'm just curious to know. Also, if you have any questions for where we are, where you are in our story.
Sure. The Guild of the Arts Cosmique had me as a training manual writer, and I would teach students. I was a grizzled old teacher who was getting tired of the job, teaching students basic skills, entry-level arts, etc., and also combat magic. So, like, entry-level tactics, if you're going to be fighting magical monsters, or if you come up against magic users, how do you sort of plan your fight? With all that in mind, I know it's maybe not the best idea in the world for all of us to go into one location all together, crammed together.
What could possibly happen?
What could go wrong?
You are just being overly paranoid here. So you've decided to split off from the rest of the group and kind of watch over.
Right. It's sort of Tactics 101 from my classes.
Do you happen to remember, and of course we kind of ended on a cliffhanger, and I will rewind here just to refresh your memory, but do you happen to remember exactly where you were when we last left you?
Yeah, I think there was indoor seating, but then there are a few tables that are like on the patio kind of thing out in front of the cafe, and I was hanging out in that area in the patio, last I recall.
Yes, so there at the Dome. The Dome is located in what's known as the 15th Precinct of Braves, a precinct being very similar to what the French would call an arrondissement, well, maybe the Parisians would call an arrondissement. And actually, the 15th Precinct was once kind of maybe a poorer neighborhood that has since suffered an influx of refugees, artisans, writers, and even small families trying to make a start due to the cheap rent prices in the area. And now it's actually a quite busy and bustling neighborhood. They're in kind of in the center, Villiers, and this area where the dome is at is called Villiers. And there at Villiers, it is the intersection of 5 different streets that come together. And sitting there in the center of the intersection of these 5 streets is actually a statue to Villiers' most famous resident, Edith Villiers, who perished 7 years before, holding off her particular part of the cosmic flood of darkness. Her actions have become legendary since, and hence we have the statue here. Perhaps you're looking out across at it as you take a seat at one of the cafe tables. But maybe they're better left for another tale. And so I think, and just to sort of bring everything up to speed here, I think that also one of the last things I had mentioned is that you had spotted, and this was not anything you had to roll for, you had spotted at least 3 or 4 figures on the roof. And it probably wouldn't be too hard to discern that they may have been keeping watch, though that's not necessarily what they were doing. It's just a suspicion. Is there anything in particular you'd like to be doing as you catch a glimpse of Philippe, Henri, and Ile descending into darkness in the kitchen?
Well, I'm basically, the way that we can both look and listen. A practiced magic user like Francois can look and sense magic at the same time. So I want to keep an eye on where they went. They walk through the crowd and you say, I catch a glimpse of them as they disappear, but I'm keeping eyes on that location, on that doorway. I want to see if anybody else goes in behind them, especially anybody dangerous. And I'm also going to be using sense magic to feel for the supernatural.
Sure. So why don't we do this then? As you watch them weave their way through what's a very crowded cafe tonight. And to remind everyone, it is about 11 p.m. The Seraphinian revolutionaries are just about to meet. They're being led by Daniel. They thread their way through the crowd, moving. Daniel maybe nods to a few people that he recognizes. And I want to remind everyone that today, and our main characters in particular, are wearing masks and capes to disguise their identities. He nods every so often to people until finally a door is opened after a secret knock and maybe a few hand motions to signal. And the 3 of them descend into the darkness. The door is closed behind them. Now, if you want to tell whether or not someone's moving around in a military-ish fashion or in a magical fashion, those are going to be rolls. And you can tell me a little bit how you want to ease those rolls.
It's still on me, right?
Yep.
I'm going to use sense magic focused around the door that they went through.
All right.
And I'm going to apply effort, and that's kind of all I got.
Okay. Are you applying just 1 level or a couple levels of effort?
Well, it's an intellect roll, so I guess I'll apply 2 levels of effort.
Yeah,
since I have 3 edge, it won't cost me nothing.
Yeah, and just to let everybody
Don't cost me nothing.
Just to let everybody at home know, we ordinarily use the online dice roller, and you see the dice tumbling across the screen, but we're not doing that tonight in an attempt to eliminate possible hardware conflicts. So go ahead.
So I rolled
it.
I rolled an 18.
18. Oh my goodness. With a roll of an 18, what a wonderful roll this is. Indeed, as the door opens and then seals itself shut, you immediately pick up dark magic. Darkness. And this is not the magic that you're kind of used to. I use the term magic loosely there. This is the darkness. This is bent space-time. Sealing the door shut. And you're not 100% sure here, but your something kind of digging at you in the back of your brain is that they're probably using something to disguise the door, and indeed maybe even opening up a second door, which is propelling the three of them through space-time. So whatever's going on here, there's some sort of time-space displacement.
I just remembered.
Please don't tell me that
game.
that doesn't work. Because if you tell me it doesn't work, I have to take everything back.
Francois, if you don't come up with something, I might have something too.
Well,
no, I just remembered last game. Didn't you cast a spell called distance viewing?
It was like a magical GoPro, is what you described it as.
Yeah, yes, and I
it's on me.
It's on you. Okay, got it. Right. I was like, I put it on somebody. But yeah. All right. So even though all I get from that is like, okay, it's dark magic, time space distortion. I still have this backup plan, right? Of maybe I can see what they see while they're inside.
Mm-hmm. The cord is cut the moment the door closes.
I thought you'd say that. Okay, well now I'm getting nervous. So I'm gonna get up and make my way to that door, looking for, like, is there an open seat where I can kind of resemble one of the other customers, but still be near the door?
Yes, absolutely.
Is what I'm looking for.
Absolutely. And again, threading your way through the crowd, you are able to find yourself a little table. And it's a raucous crowd tonight, but the conversations that you overhear are rather, I don't want to say mundane. They're rather artsy-fartsy. And actually looking around you, you really get the feeling that you're in some sort of like artsy district where people take themselves far too seriously. It's a lot of talk about whether or not the wall is white or eggshell, and whether or not King Hugo should have his head taken off or should be hung. Just a lot of like silly talk.
Artists and actors and authors and other undesirables.
Yes, everybody's, well, if you want to call them undesirables, you're basically carving out a lot of our subscriber base. Thank you for that.
That's
the intelligentsia.
The intelligentsia. There we go. That's a great
joke.
way of putting it. Okay. So if you want anything kind of further than that, you're going to have to really get closer or take a real good look around.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to do another look around. Let's try sense magic, directed not at the door, because I feel like I'm not going to get anything else off the door. So a much closer radius around me to see if any of the crowd or objects around are giving off any magic vibes.
Go ahead and make another roll and let me know if you're easing a task at all, applying any effort or using an asset. But
right, I'll use, and I keep forgetting the mechanics of this, but I have 3 edge, so that allows me to apply 2 levels of effort for free. Or is it 3?
No, so 3 levels of edge just simply means that your first level of effort is free.
Okay.
Then your second level costs you 2 points. So when you apply, essentially you can always apply 1 level of effort for free if you use intellect. And then if you want to apply a second level, it's going to cost you 2 points out of your pool. So if you want to apply, there is the ability itself, or I should say the spell or skill or ability, whatever you want to call it. And then there is the level of effort, which you can have for free. And if you want a second level of effort, it will simply cost you 2 points out of your intellect.
Okay. Well, I decided what I was going to do before I rolled, so I'll just
bite the bullet.
2 level.
I sense a roll of a 1 coming on, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. No. So even though it won't do me any good, let's go with 2 levels of effort, because that's what I was going to do. If I had known I was going to roll a 7, again, can't see that. I wouldn't bother because I spent the intellect points for nothing. But whatever.
Yeah,
it's fine. I
for
rolled
a
7.
7, this is a very busy cafe, and now you can kind of see that some of the baristas or some of the servers are giving you the hairy eyeball at this point. They're not happy to see someone plunking themselves down and taking up space without actually purchasing something. They haven't said anything yet because, no offense, but I sort of saw your characters being a little bit rough around the edges, and maybe they're a little bit intimidated by you. You have sort of a seasoned look to you that the average customer doesn't. You don't seem like you're full of shit, I guess, in other words, as many of the other customers often are. But they're kind of like,
Well, I'll order something at the first opportunity. If they come by and ask, and just give me un café.
That's so good.
Question:
I feel
does
like I'm
this
in
universe
French.
have coffee?
Sure,
That's true.
it absolutely does. It is made from darkness, however. So ordering the coffee, the un café, it comes up immediately, or tout de suite, and it's a busy night. Everybody's celebrating. Snotty intelligentsia types are all chatting and talking. Have we exhausted your ideas for your current situation?
Yeah, that's all I got. I think I'm just gonna park here and see if anybody else goes into or comes out of that door.
Mm-hmm.
And if nobody does after a while, I'll have to come up with some other plan. But for now, I'm just gonna keep an eye on traffic.
Okay, cool. So with that, let's cut to Philippe, Henri, and Elaine, who are being excitedly led down some stone steps that kind of spiral down into the darkness. And I don't think that this is any surprise, because I think that I had mentioned this as well, but the limited amount of light from the torches that spiral down along this staircase illuminate some rather bright, pale white, orbish forms. And what you realize is that the walls, as you descend into what are most certainly catacombs beneath the dome, are encrusted with the bones of the dead. And so as you move down deeper and deeper into the catacombs, Daniel gets excited. And he sort of waves his hand as he looks back and just says, I know that's, I know this kind of looks bad here and all of that. Maybe this looks a little bit kind of sacrilegious, should we say. But please remember, the catacombs were actually once underground mines. And he explains to you that the mines beneath the 15th precinct were a place where once miners would pull up materials that were used to construct the city. But after the coming of the cosmic flood, thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of citizens, of humans, drowned in the darkness. And the cemeteries overflowed with bodies and were no longer able to handle the sheer amount of dead that were a result of the cosmic flood. And so the city leaders did the only thing that they could. They turned these mines, these underground mines, into an ossuary. And indeed, as you descend the steps, at first the bones just look merely decorative. But then as you get deeper and deeper, and as you descend what must be now 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet maybe even, beneath the city, beneath the precinct, you realize that this place is filled with thousands and thousands of the dead. and looking into and at the decorative spaces, you get the feeling that there must have been so many bodies that they did little, if anything, to bother to try to identify them. And they line the walls, and you can kind of see that there are a lot of cracks and crevices where bodies were just kind of folded up and maybe wrapped. And they were wrapped with items and with trinkets. Some of them may be valuable. They glint in the way that maybe valuable metals might glint. And Daniil is explaining this to you as you descend into the darkness. Can the three of you, now that we've set the scene, just tell us a little bit about what each one of you is kind of on a mission for tonight, and what your intentions are by following Daniil down into, well, I was going to call them an ossuary, but you thought you were going into mines.
So before we launch into that, I'm going to elbow Philippe and say, so whose idea was it to leave the necromancer upstairs?
I do not know.
Probably could have used him.
Francois would be handy right now.
So I'll start, I guess. I am Henri Ducasse, who is a kind of an explorer. He spends a fair amount of time beyond the wall and in well, frankly, dark places like this, looking for, artifacts and trinkets that he can sell to his contacts in the city. He's kind of a, underworld trader type guy. And his goal here is actually with this Daniil fellow, who happens to be the son of one of his good friends. And he's a little protective of him, more for his father's sake, because he feels like he's involved with some pretty stupid things with this group. And so his goal is to figure out what this group is all about, and then eventually, slap some sense into Daniil and bring him back to his dad.
But now let me ask you this, not to play devil's advocate, but I mean,
Sure.
Do you think the revolutionaries are off on a foolish crusade, or do you think he's being foolish for getting involved with them?
My sense from what I saw is that they've recruited a bunch of simpletons, for lack of a better word, but there's probably something a little more nefarious that Daniil knows going on. So he's definitely got his radar up with what might be the true power behind this. He's a little skeptical that their goal is just to overthrow the king. It just seems a little bit too naive for a group filled with, frankly, amateurs.
Philippe or Ile, any thoughts on your own goals for following Daniil down into the darkness?
Aside from our current mission from that mage Barbier, to get to the bottom of what is happening to the leadership of this city, and knowing that the Seraphinian revolutionaries are probably at the heart of it. Ile negotiated the release of Daniil, but it is contingent upon us also finding out what is going on here.
Paul Durant.
Oh, thank you.
That's okay,
Lots
though.
of name.
I know,
It's okay.
right? It wouldn't be one of my games if it weren't hyper complex and difficult to follow.
Well, at least there's not 4 Philippes in this one, so
That's
we're
right.
good.
That
Yeah.
would be
Good.
hard.
And you don't have 4 nicknames per person.
How about
We'll
you,
get
Ile?
there.
Oh, yes. Just wait and see by the end of the.
Oh boy. Hey, I read Russian novels for fun, so
There we
bring
go.
it.
That's. I would. I wouldn't try to challenge that. What about you, Ile?
Yeah.
What is your
So-
goal here tonight? Why are you following along into the
I'm
darkness?
mostly following this, this little holy fool down this mine of bones, mainly so I can fulfill my obligation to Marine Barbier, the mage who I negotiated for the release of Paul Duran, because he was an innocent man who took the fall for his family, and I don't think that's fair. So I think that the revolutionaries and the darkness that took control of the flame, it's a little bit too much of a coincidence to happen in the same event, in the same place at the same time. So I agree. I think it's more than just, oh, we're trying to overthrow the king. I'm like, no, there's something's going on. People who are trying to overthrow the king are upstairs drinking, overly charged, overpriced lattes. They're not meeting in ossuaries. Okay. So I'm like, this is getting a little sinister. I mean, it's with the bones and everything, it's feeling a little bit weird and claustrophobic, but it's just like, something's not right. This is not adding up. We need to not be here, but we also need to be here because of Duran.
All right.
A lot of feeling.
You've reached the base of the spiral stairwell at this point, and now you can feel the coldness and the musty air. There is actually a breeze down here as you look out into the mines. And what you see is essentially like a very complex interconnecting series of tunnels, some of which are quite wide. So they're not what you would typically sort of envision if you're thinking usually about like these narrow little mines with not a lot of room, but some of them are quite wide and spacious. And as he continues to sort of chatter away and tell you a little bit of the history of how these mines came to be, and actually at certain points he refers to himself as being one of the original people to bring the bodies down here. And he'll point out, over there is where they buried such and such person, and over there is where they buried this famous person, and over there is where they buried a politician. And he uses the term buried loosely because what's really going on is that the bodies are essentially stacked and encrusted into the walls in a way in which some of them are rather preserved, but for the most part, they are simply the bones themselves. And again, as you move through the tunnels, you do get glints and hints that there are things stored within certain areas and with certain, shall I say, certain bodies. And as a matter of fact, as you pass by one or two here, one or two there, you can see that clearly there are ciphers that have been left. And whether these things have been left as offerings or whether they were buried with the dead, you're not really sure. Unless we're stopping or anything, I will continue.
I will not desecrate the dead.
I want to try, since you mentioned ciphers.
That is what we keep Henri around for.
I
It's
would
his
like to
department.
use my hand to eye skill,
Okay.
which is like pickpocketing, manual dexterity type thing.
Yep.
I want to see if I could snag a cipher or two from.
You could, just to let you know, you could easily snag any of them. It's just a question of whether or not. So you're saying you want to do it without Danielle knowing? Is that
Correct.
What you're saying? Okay. All right.
Yes.
That's a little different. The feeling you get is that you could probably do it. However, the game master is going to make you roll for it. That's your general impression from looking around. Is there anything in particular that catches your eye, and you could describe it to me?
Something like a thermal detonator would be nice.
Well, as you identifying the cipher is something a little bit different, but tell me what the tell me what the body, or perhaps that particular part of the wall, looks like. And then I'll tell you whether or not you can snatch it. And then you'll figure out whether or not. It's what you
So
want.
maybe in one of the bodies there's almost like a bandolier across a bony chest,
Mm-hmm.
and in that bandolier there's like either a little pouch or a little maybe a locket, something
Mm-hmm.
that looks of Cypher quality that I can grab.
Okay. I like that. So let's see if you can do this without alerting Daniil to it.
Sure.
So do you want to use a particular skill or ability, or?
Yeah, it's that hand to eye,
Hand to
which
eye.
is the ability,
Mhm.
and then I'll use a level of effort.
Henri, I would like to give an assist because he and I have worked together many times. I can see he is rooting around for things visually. So I will distract Daniil by asking him, is this still an active burial site?
Sounds good. So go ahead. That's what is that? 3 easements?
So that's 3 easements.
Mhm.
And first roll of the night is, well, right
Well,
down the middle, 10.
10. Your first roll of the night.
My first roll of the
that is a success. You're easily able to take the Cypher. And as you do so, there's a cracking sound. And the impression you get is that no one has touched this body in 5 years. And you pull the Cypher away from and out of the skeleton's hands, and then are able to deposit it quickly into one of your pockets, but not until, or not able to discern what it is.
Really examine it yet. Yeah,
if
that's
you
fine.
want, I mean, that's going to be a sneaky.
No, I'm not
prospect.
even going to try to do that in front of Daniil.
Okay.
Are there any ciphers that are just like kind of on the ground or sort of kicked around that aren't on a body but are sort of in the vicinity?
Yeah, you know what? That's a really great question. I would say that there probably are. There are a few every so often as you're walking along through the catacombs that look like they've either been knocked out of the, one of the resting spots, or maybe someone has just dropped them there. If you want to just grab something very quickly, if you want to describe the area of the wall where it's from, that gives me a good idea.
Yeah,
of what it might
there's
be.
just like there's a crack in the wall, like there's nothing really identifying. There's no identifying features that I could look at it and be like, oh, it came from this skeleton, or this was placed on such and such body. It's just sort of on the ground near some pebbles or chunks of wall that have fallen out over time. And there's no obvious like little hole where I could stick it back in necessarily.
Right. Okay. Well, why don't you do this? Go ahead and make that roll to do it in a sneaky fashion. Do you have some sort of an ability? Do you have an asset, or do you want to apply effort to ease the task? It's going to be a little easier. The impression is, like, the idea here is that it's going to be a little bit easier because you're just sort of plucking it off the ground as opposed to maybe putting your hand into.
Yeah, I don't really have any abilities or items to help with this. So I'm also not going to apply too much effort in this.
Okay, so a level or 2?
Yeah, maybe like a 1.
1 level. Okay. Yeah, go ahead and make your roll.
All right. And that's an 11.
With an 11, you're easily able to pluck the Cypher from the ground, slip it into your pocket or into your tunic somewhere, and then just simply walk along. And again, if you want to identify it, it's going to take a moment. It's probably not something you can do on your feet, and maybe not in the darkness here in the catacombs, but maybe when you come to a resting spot somewhere.
Yeah, I'm just debating because I'm like, well, clearly it's here for a reason, and we're in a catacomb. Like, is there something are we going to be ambushed? Do I need to know what this is right away? But I also, like this maybe isn't an emergency.
Yeah.
Maybe I can wait.
Do you, and
I'll wait a little bit.
this is not something, so Philippe, can you go ahead and ask your question now, the question that distracted Daniel?
Is this still a current burial place?
Oh,
Who monitors it?
of course, of course. I mean, the city really takes care of everything here, and it's in affiliation with the churches, and of course, you know that they do their best to take care of the residents, but the number of deaths, as you would probably know, have slowed down. But the problem still remains that above ground in the cemeteries are all absolutely full. And so the only place left are the ossuaries down, the mines down here.
And why is it that the Seraphinians meet here?
This is just simply the place where they happen to meet this time. But they take a lot of precautions. I don't know if you noticed. Did you look at the door as we entered?
I saw the two guys outside the door as we were coming in.
No. But see, we're not actually beneath the dome anymore. We're in a different spot. We passed through some sort of doorway that took us to another spot right now. We're not in the same spot as we were before.
But we're still in the city.
We are in the city, of course. I to be honest, I don't quite recognize this place. I do recognize the air of it. I know places like this. I've buried bodies. I worked for hours and hours and hours on end burying bodies. But where we are exactly, I don't know. It's another part. It's another way of keeping us all double blind. So we don't really know where we are. We don't know who we're working with. Tonight, we were all told to bring someone along, bring a recruit. Tonight, I'm bringing the three of you, and perhaps even your friend, maybe, who remains upstairs.
Okay.
He seems like he's agreeable to sort of like explaining himself. Does anyone else kind of have any questions? And as you kind of twist and turn, you do from time to time see citizens, you see residents looking around down this corner here or looking around through that corner there. You see people are living down here. And they allow Daniel and the three of you to kind of go your way without stopping you at all. And the impression you get is that this is not some secret hideout, but it's just some area of the city that happens to be located underground and not really as heavily populated or traveled as the rest of the city. You're all free to ask, not you all, Francois, sorry, but Philippe, Henri, and Ile, you're free to ask questions if you wish, or I can kind of fast forward and just get us, well, I won't say where.
I don't ask another question, but in as much as I can look concerned, wearing an armadillo mask over my helmet, I look at Delay and Henri to make sure they heard that we are not where we think we are.
And there's no reason for this other than it's just the place that they meet.
Do you say that out loud?
No.
Oh, okay. Do you sort of
I mean,
give
I could,
a look
but I
like you don't really believe this or think it's silly?
Absolutely. I am
Non-verbal
giving so
communication.
Much, so
He
much
just-
side eye right
Daniel
now.
looks at you and he says, "It's they have abilities and powers beyond what we can do, but they use
I'm
them
gonna-
for good."
I'm gonna do something here, and using the heel of my boot, I'm going to scrape a symbol into the dust,
I like this.
into the ground, and just with the idea that I want to see if, as we're doing our walk around, we end up back in the same spot.
I really, really, really like this question. what's the symbol that you're marking in the? And this is something I would say you can kind of do this like without even.
Yeah, like I don't know,
Danielle
a
scoots
T.
ahead. And,
Yeah, a T with a circle around it or something like that.
How
Nothing-
about a stylized H, Henri?
There you
Or
go.
Henri.
oh,
Or, yes, Matt knows what I'm thinking.
I know
of.
what you're thinking. You can't mention it
Osterman.
yet though because you can't mention it because we haven't encountered it in this world yet. Okay, so just a T, like maybe pointing in the direction you're going, or
Yeah, just so that it's
Okay.
got, so that I'll know if we encounter it again, whether we encountered it from the same
Yeah.
direction
Yeah.
or the other direction. Yeah.
and you're going to be doing
This
these.
is also good.
Go ahead.
Sorry, this is also good for letting Francois know which direction we went if he follows us.
Right. Trail of breadcrumbs.
I am
Yes.
willing to retroactively allow this to happen from the stairwell.
Okay.
Is that
So
all
like
right?
a couple of times.
Yeah, because I think honestly, you probably would have thought of this like a few of them so far. And so every so often, and that's exactly what I thought of too, Ile, was a trail of breadcrumbs. So at any rate, Daniel does move you through the mines. He talks about how they were dug out about 100 years ago. It just sort of goes on and on. The miners were looking for gypsum and for use in plaster for cementing bricks together, limestone, things like that. But then he goes on and he tells you a little bit more about how the dead were caused by the clouds of dark ash and the poison mists that moved in, and how they overwhelmed our fair citizens of Frank Reich and, of course, of Braves as well. And he shakes his head and he grows a little bit gloomier with that. And he talks about how many thousands of Frank Reichers perished before the mages of the arts cosmique were actually able to erect the grand labyrinth, which once and for all sealed the cosmic flood from the nation of Frank Reich. And he stops for a moment and he looks down at the ground, and maybe Henri for a moment you kind of think, oh my gosh, he knows that I've been marking our way. But then he just looks at the ground and he shakes his head and just asks, can you imagine what it would be like? Bodies piled high, thousands of them stacked down here. I worked for several years down here.
Daniel, how old were you when you worked down here?
He tells you, 13, 14, maybe. And that wouldn't be an unusual question because he might not know exactly how old he is. He may have like a rough idea, but it might not be something that ever came up. But 13 or 14. And if that was 7 years ago, then that puts him at 20 or 21, which is about what I had envisioned, and I had seen him as sort of a wet behind the ears kind of young fellow. Any other questions, or? It's okay if not.
Yeah, I'm sure I do. I just don't know what the question is yet.
Okay. Then we'll just move on.
I would like to move along. It is very tight in here.
And dark. And
And-
dead smelling.
Cold and dank. So eventually, moving into the darkness, you come upon a small arch encrusted with the bones of the dead. And outside of the arch, you can see a lot of people, all dressed in masks and capes. The masks come down to their noses, or in some cases they cover their faces completely. And they're various animals, but now actually they're not so much animals as they simply are masks to create anonymity. And Daniel nods to a few of the men and women as he passes them by and makes his way toward the door, the arch. And there at the arch are two rather large-looking figures, and they're broad-shouldered, enormous hands, and they look like their muscles upon muscles are about to burst out of their leather and denim clothing. They wear gauntlets and armor, and they're immediately recognizable, not for their costume and way of dress, but for their tentacles. Long, slimy, wet tentacles that play out before them. And they move this way and that way, as if sensing sounds or perhaps smells, or perhaps just simply looking, searching. And the two of them direct their attention towards the three of you. They lean down and inward. Look at Daniil, and Daniil, just look, I've brought some new recruits for tonight. They've asked us to bring someone. I'm bringing 3 and maybe 4, someone else up in the dome. And they simply look the 3 of you up and down, and they lean forward. And maybe you, Philippe, are the first one that they lean toward, and those tentacles come out.
Have we seen creatures such as this before?
You would know these creatures as the afflicted. These are people that have been afflicted with the cosmic sickness. And ordinarily, the cosmic sickness is something that degrades the body. But in some certain cases, it will mutate or change the body. And so these great gruff creatures were probably, you would hope, once human, though there are rumors that every once in a while this is actually a cosmic monstrosity that's hiding in plain sight as an afflicted. But they do have talents and abilities unlike those of mortal humans. So this would not be too surprising to you, but maybe you haven't really seen them up close. They mostly keep to the darkness. When I say darkness, that's the lowercase darkness, the shadows of alleyways. They stay in, believe it or not, ghettos in certain areas of the city where, unfortunately, they are corralled rather unfairly and cruelly. They lean in, and those tentacles come out. And now you can tell that they're looking at you, they're smelling you, they're listening to you, probably even maybe your heartbeat. They're smelling you. Each one is a different sensory organ being used to size you up. How would you... I know I'm putting you on the spot because this is the first time you've encountered a creature like this, but how would you respond to it?
I would probably be slightly startled, but then I would just kind of instinctively regulate my breathing and slow my heart rate down a bit. Just so in case it's listening for that, it doesn't tell that I'm nervous.
So one of them is going towards Philippe, one of them is toward Ile. It's not making any kind of like combative or aggressive motions. It's just simply sizing you up. And Daniel is kind of waiting.
Myself
Go ahead, Philippe.
am curious about these creatures because most of the afflicted we have seen, either in the city or outside the wall, are sick, dying. I've, like you said, I have never seen one of these up close, an augmented afflicted, a double A, if you will. I would lean in close myself and try to see exactly what it is trying to do to me.
When you lean in, you can kind of see beneath those tentacles, you can see like teeth that are chattering and gums that are just like receded. These long teeth,
Oh,
they begin to chatter.
gotta floss.
And you can hear like a growl in there and just smell this foul Icarus, dark, dank smell from another dimension, or so it is said. It doesn't like you leaning in, but it just sort of is sizing you up. Henri, anything or?
Yeah, I want to kind of look past these guys.
Sure.
I have one of the abilities I have is to see in dim light.
Okay.
So I want to look, from with the place we're standing. It's called eyes adjusted. Is the skill? It's not. I don't think it's like a role type thing. It's just, like I have the ability to see in dim light. So I want to look past where they came from and see if there's either any more of them.
Yeah.
Or if there's like a room that they actually came out of or something like that.
And I'll say in this particular case, you don't even have to roll for this, okay? Looking past them, just the fact that you have the ability itself is enough to allow you to see a little bit better than Philippe Inilé without even applying any effort or squinting or anything like that. You can see past them, and the impression that you get in your head, the first impression you get is that these two guys are like bouncers. They're the muscle. And beyond them, through the archway, you're actually looking at some sort of underground chapel. Looking past them in the dim, dim light, you can see pews. You can see an altar. You can actually see maybe even a baptismal bath far in the back. And you can see the runes of a popular religion, which I won't specify because we're going to keep that general and vague for right now. But more importantly, what you see are a very crowded chapel with a lot of quietly chattering guests and members and, for lack of a better word, just simple attendees. Now, if you want to go a little bit deeper than that, you'll have to start doing some rolling. But your general impression is that they're the guards guarding this next room, this chapel.
I will test their sense of smell by belching a whistling pig belch. Beer and pie, loud.
So one of the creatures just sort of moves backward and narrows his eyes, looks to Daniil. These humans.
This is what you bring us.
These humans, why will you bring them to us? This horrible idea, horrible smell, horrible creature. And it moves forward, it leans in and just looks you in the eye when it calls you a horrible creature. They smell like human. And then the two of them kind of look at each other. And actually, the one that didn't say anything at all just like rolls its eyes. His eyes. Actually, I should say its, because at this point, their eyes. We don't know if you're looking at a male or a female or somewhere in between. And just waves it away. And speaks uncharacteristically in a sophisticated manner, or at least what you see as a sophisticated manner. Please excuse my companion here. They are a simple creature who has been affected by the undue stresses of the metamorphosis that we have undertaken. However, if Daniil thinks that you're good for the Seraphinians, that's good enough for us. And then that one, which was the one that was on kind of like leaning in to check you out, Alay, kind of like steps back and then unrolls a gauntleted hand that you realize is gauntleted, but is kind of like another tentacle, as if to step out of the way and allow all three of you to pass. And at that point, I don't know if you guys are just going to enter.
I'd like to slip a little packet of I guess pain relieving herbs to one of the guards and be like, for you and your friends.
And that
to
would
ease
actually
the pain of your affliction.
Yes, that would actually be like a very kind sort of thing to do for them, because the transformation, the metamorphosis, the mutation does indeed cause some pain. And so as you enter into this room, you immediately see that all three of you see that you are indeed in a chapel, and it is unusually enormous. It feels like this is a mistake. How could you be underground in a place as large as this? And it's pockets of guests and attendees that are all kind of whispering and talking to each other. And Daniil explains, we were told that we would come to meet after tonight's actions. And we were told to bring recruits, bring fresh members to join. I've brought the three of you and maybe the fourth of you upstairs. I'm so excited by this. Why don't we find a seat?
Can't wait.
Daniil.
Is this evil church? Are we at evil church?
Evil church.
You
Daniil.
know answer. It's okay. I'm
Evil
like
church?
evil church. I'm not, no. This is not to Daniel. It's like above the table. Like
Daniil, they did not seem to like the fact that we are humans. Are not all of these people here human?
excellent question.
I'm shocked that you would ask this question, but of course, not everyone here is human. I mean, they are human, but they consider themselves to be different than humans. They are the afflicted. You know that they're corralled and pushed into ghettos and shunned and cursed. We hope someday they're under the boot of the king as well. Someday we will all be free to live as we are. Any other questions, or are we okay? Let's cut back to Francois then. Francois, I hope you're not falling asleep up there.
No, I'm getting nervous.
I know, right?
So Francois,
I'm
sorry. I was going to say,
yes.
I was going to say, you've had a few moments to think. Do you have any sort of plans here now, or do you have an idea of what you want to do, or do you want me to just spring some stuff on you? Don't worry. Don't worry. Actually, I'll spring it on you no matter what. So you just tell me if you have any plans.
Well, previously on, the last you heard from me was that I was just watching to see if anybody else would come and
That's
go
right.
through that door. Has that happened?
Well, it's funny that you say that. It's just such a strange coincidence. We play these games week in and week out, and you ask these questions, and for some reason, I always have an answer for you when you ask them. As a matter of fact, several people, not quite dressed like the rest of the crowd. So today is the day of the green. Everyone is dressing in costumes that are related to animals of some sort. And in fact, you're wearing, and I don't remember if I don't know if you remember which costume you had chosen.
I was the fox.
Okay, but
Renard.
There we go.
Le Renard.
So, are you doing some research on the side?
No, I speak French.
Oh, you don't? Oh, no kidding. Okay. All right. This is great. All right. Thank you. But at any rate, everyone today has been wearing animal costumes. These new guests seem to be wearing these very simple masks that just look like a mixture of cloth and kind of like plaster, as if, or maybe even wood, perhaps is what I really mean. And they look like distorted caricatures of humans. And that's the only way that they really stand out. Unless you want to do a roll and take a closer look at each one of them and see what you can kind of discern. But there are at least two,
let's roll.
maybe three.
One level of effort.
One
I don't
level
have
of
any
effort.
other. I don't have any other boosts,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a roll of 17.
With a 17, you can tell automatically just by their movement. You can tell by their gait, by the way they hold themselves. They have abilities that are not the ordinary abilities that you would find in a simple, unaffected human. And as a matter of fact, from your time in the mages, they have some mannerisms about them. And I can tell you what they are, but I would love to hear if you have any identifying mannerisms that you find to be distinctly from the mages of the arts cosmique.
No, I have nothing to contribute. I'd rather hear your ideas.
So the way that they move, actually, they move in a very prim and kind of proper manner. And you, as I recall, and if I get this correct, were busy kind of copying textbooks and doing work like that, which you found to be extremely menial, boring, meaningless. You can tell that at least two of them probably worked in a similar department. They have a movement to them as they sit down, as they sit at their seat, as they kind of compose their hands on the table. It was a particular way and a method that you were taught when you were trained how to sort of get yourself in the right mindset, to copy the book, not just with ink, but with your spirit and with your soul. And when they move in a very similar manner.
So they came in and sat down, though. They're not headed for that door.
No.
Okay, so now I have two incentives. Number one, they make me nervous and I don't want to be around them. Because you said you used the plural. So I'm assuming there's at least two, if not more.
Yeah.
So I'm outnumbered. And also my group may need me because the distance viewing spell, the magic GoPro cut off. I'm not getting any feed. I don't know what's happening with them. So now I'm twice as motivated to get up and stop waiting for a chance to follow someone through the door and just go through the door. So I want to head to the door and basically, so you can tell me, my thought process is there, have they stopped guarding it for the night? Everybody's collected. There's no secret door knock. Is there any way for me to just slip in? That kind of thought process.
Their people are just sort of coming and going through the door.
Oh, okay.
And
so,
go ahead.
So then, I just want to duck in through there.
You open the door up, and it's not to where you think it's going to be. It's just a wooden staircase that goes down. It's not what you were expecting.
And when they went through, I saw it was like stone and all this, and it looks nothing like that.
Yeah, it looked different. And I don't know if I don't think you could necessarily tell that there were skulls encrusted on the walls, but you're looking at it and you're like, wait a minute, this is like beams of wood and what's going on?
Sacks of coffee beans.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and there is like a stairwell that goes down, but you can kind of see goes into like a cellar, a cold, just a standard.
I have one last ace up my sleeve.
So
try
as you're
them.
standing there with the door wide open because you've gone into an area that is pretty much just servers only, a young fellow stops you. Excuse me, sir. Were you looking? Could I help you? Were you looking for something?
Yes, I was. My friends went through this door earlier, and now they don't seem to be on the other side of this door.
Oh, your friends went through this door earlier. Oh. And you realize that he's wearing a mask, not unlike the masks of the two fellas that were sitting across from you. Well, let me help you then. He's waiting for your reply.
Oh, can you tell me
Please.
where my friends went?
This way. Oh, well, if they went downstairs, then they're not down there now. Let's talk about this. Why don't we talk about this? And now he's sort of trying to usher you along. And now it's a question of whether or not you want to go along with him or you're going to resist him. He's not
well,
like grabbing you. He's just like,
No. Right. Well, that depends on where he's trying to steer me. Is he trying to steer me
steering
off
you-
into a secluded area or
He's-
back into the middle of the
he's
crowd?
steering you back into the back room. And now the two gentlemen or the two types that were sort of watching you before, they're getting up and they're heading in your direction.
No.
Then I am going to resist. I'm trying to make it out of the Dome coffee shop. I want to get out of the out into the street, basically.
You turn to sort of start to walk away, and those two fellas, I'm going to call them fellas. They're not really, you don't really know at this point, but these two humanoids approach you with their masks. And now there's one on one side of you in front of the room that he was trying to usher you into. And then there are two behind you that are blocking the way back into the cafe.
Okay. Well, I have a Cypher that I carry that I'm going to pull out and have ready to use.
Okay. What
I
is the
pull
level?
from my-
What is the level of the Cypher?
Let's see. Sorry.
It's okay.
It is 1d6 plus 2.
Okay. Can you roll the 1d6 plus 2 and tell me what the level of the Cypher is?
Yes. 6.
6.
Plus
So
2.
it's an 8. Nice. What is the Cypher?
The Cypher is called Controlled Blinking. For the next day, each time the user is struck hard enough to inflict damage, but no more than once per round, they teleport to a spot they desire within immediate range.
This sounds like one of the... We have a lot of fun with that one. Okay, so I'm so
Yes.
sorry to
Well,
interrupt
there's
you.
blinking, and then there's controlled blinking. So
Right,
this one
that's
I can
true.
control with.
I believe
Yeah.
Philippe had
As opposed to
blinking, right?
Blinking.
It's
Yes.
still within that today, by the way.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah, that's right, because the day's not up. So I'm so sorry. I interrupted you, Francois. So you were, what, reaching into your pocket to grab the...
Yeah, so reach into my pocket and pull out the controlled blinking Cypher.
Unfortunately, you don't. And
Okay.
the moment you put your hand into your pocket, there's nothing there. And the taller of the two that are standing between you and the cafe raises up the Cypher that you were about
Oh.
to activate. Holds it left and right. Cocks their head in your direction with that caricatured mask. Do you have a reaction to this?
Let's see.
Should we go back? Should I give you a moment to think?
Yeah, you can go back to the other group.
Okay, I'll give you a
Oh,
little
no.
moment to think. All right. So moving back to Philippe, Henri, and Ile. The three of you have just entered this underground chapel, and it's like I was saying, it is enormous. It is, in a way, you're almost like thinking, how could this be like possible? How could something so large have been constructed down here? And again, Daniil goes on to sort of explain to you, oh, well, you know, because there were so many bodies down here, there were so many funerals, eventually they decided to start building things under here to help. You know, we held services. They held services down here. The dead were brought through. And he's just kind of going on to explain to you the evolution of this chapel and the structures and architecture that you see underground here. Looking around the crowd, you see dozens and dozens of people. And I'm going to say that without even rolling, you can kind of tell that what you see here are people that have been here before or people who are familiar with where they're at, having brought a guest or two. And your quick surmise is, not unlike Daniil, dozens of people in here brought one or two people to this meeting. It's a recruiting meeting. And everyone is still wearing masks. Everyone is kind of like disguised. But, you know, I'd say a third of the people in here are really acting like they belong here. And the other 2/3 are kind of like new, looking around, getting to kind of, you know, see what's going on, et cetera, et cetera. Are you three doing anything at this point?
I would like to bend down to tie my shoe, fake a sneeze, and peek through my scarf, pretending to like wipe my nose, and see if I can see anything that may be like interdimensionally sus.
Bending down to tie your shoe, look through your scarf, blow your nose, all of that stuff. So the scarf counts as an easement. Do you want to do anything else to ease the task?
So I have interdimensional knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps.
It would. It might.
Okay. Okay.
Any
I would
effort?
Yes. There's also identifying if interdimensional knowledge does not help.
Well, it's not like you can kind of like if you roll and it doesn't work, you can but that'll work.
I wasn't sure if you were gonna count interdimensional knowledge as an assist or not, but okay.
No,
great.
I wouldn't count it as assist. You're gonna ease it by 1 with a level of effort, or 2.
Yes. Let's do 2 because I feel like this might be important.
Maybe.
Could be. I don't know.
Go ahead and make your roll.
All right. Rolling and oh, that is a 17.
With a 17, what you get is that you and your 3 companions are covered in a kind of residue. And in fact, many of the people in this room are covered in an interdimensional residue. And you get the sense that you have traveled in space and or time. And that maybe you're not quite where you thought you were. And maybe one of the reasons why this chapel seems so large is because it's not quite where you would imagine. You're thinking in your head and kind of doing some calculations. You're like, wait a minute. If we were walking west for so many minutes and then we turned north and then we went back west, we should be in this area of the city. But yet somehow this couldn't exist in that particular spot. It would have to be in a different spot. So thinking about it, things are not quite right. And putting 2 and 2 together, what you realize is that if you have some sort of residue on you from moving through space and or time, well, you walk through more than a doorway at some point.
Okay. I don't see anyone who looks like they might be, you know,
Otherworldly, other dimensionally.
yeah, or anything that's like what I saw with the flame earlier.
No.
Okay.
No.
Doesn't mean there's nothing there, but at least I don't
Yes,
see it for now.
I will say that, because one thing I will remind my players of and the viewers is that you are all dealing with much higher level creatures than you are used to dealing with here. I'll
Right.
just say that. I'm not going to necessarily say, well, okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you for coming,
That's
everyone.
more than enough.
Anyone else?
I want to do a scan around and see if I can discern
Yep.
who the leader might be.
I like this. So tell me what ability you're using, and then if you're applying any other efforts or assets.
I'm going to have to read the exact description, but I do have something called Eye for Detail,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which I'm hoping might be a good one.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Um,
Eye for Detail.
Eye for detail. So I believe I have it right here. 2 intellect points. When you spend 5 minutes or so thoroughly exploring an area no larger than a short distance in diameter, you can ask the GM one question about the area. The GM must answer you truthfully. Oh, really? You cannot use this more than one time per area per 24 hours. Action to initiate, 5 minutes to complete. I'm willing to say that you've been here for 5 minutes.
Okay.
And it is also, just to remind you, it is a short distance, right? So it's not like the whole chapel. So within, I forget what a short distance is, but it's like 30 feet
Right.
radius or something. I'll just call it that for now.
Okay. Then maybe I'm going to change my question. Where are we?
Oh, I wasn't the GM.
Or when are we?
The GM wasn't
Sorry.
anticipating this question.
But you must answer truthfully.
I know I must. The truth is, I don't know.
But he also doesn't have to answer the whole truthfully.
You're in another precinct right now. You are not underneath the 15th precinct, and actually looking at it, you're under. And I apologize. I'll give you another precinct number because I hadn't actually looked
That's
at
fine.
it. But you're not there. You're not too far off. You're maybe a mile or two away from where you thought you would be at this point. We'll just put
Okay.
it that way.
This is the kind of thing that is the reason I got fired. Like my strategy of hanging back so I could bust in and all that obviously doesn't work. This is
Oh,
why I got
no.
fired from the guild.
Oh no.
No problem. The circle's going to be
You
completed
had
tonight,
such good
Eric.
intentions
Don't
and
worry.
such, great training.
Right, I mean, the thought process was there,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I didn't account for magical interdimensional doorways.
Yeah.
It just didn't work out
Which I
this
probably
time.
should have done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay. Next time.
With that knowledge, Henri, are you going to be doing anything, or?
Yeah, I'm gonna share with these guys that we're no longer in the 15th arrondissement.
Dude,
Somehow we have been magically transported.
Now, just remember, you traded your question about who's in charge.
I did.
I have a question about the environment. Are there like little hymnals or
Yeah.
prayer books or
Sure.
something?
Yeah, they're moldy and
I'm
musty.
just-
They look like they haven't been open in a long time. You open one up and it's just it's covered in cobwebs, and it
Okay.
almost, some of the pages crumble in your fingers and they're
Okay.
moist.
So it's like from before the flood, I guess.
No, not necessarily. Actually, looking at it, like if it were from before the flood, I mean, it would just be disintegrated. These are
Okay.
recent, relatively speaking. And I don't want to give you the impression that this place is not used at all. It is used, but it's just that it's not frequently traveled.
Is there anything I can glean from these that would tell me a little bit more about who these people are?
Yes.
Or what their creeds are?
Opening up one of the books, one of the religious symbols, which I hadn't identified earlier on, and which Frank and Henri will immediately recognize. There's what looks like a very thin, tall letter H, but it's got two dashes through it. This is one of the more popular religions before the cosmic flood. This is one of the religions that was in favor within the kingdom of Frankreich and within actually the entire region, the continent maybe. But then after the flood came and after the darkness enveloped the world, the religion fell out of favor, mostly due to the fact that none of the prayers, none of the thoughts that were offered by this particular religion did any good. The only good that was really done was by the mages of the arts cosmique. So now, if anything, this particular religion is underground, both literally and figuratively speaking. These people are outcasts. And as a matter of fact, you know, I don't want to force anything on you, but I was sort of thinking in my head, this might be a good moment to connect it. Is it possible your mom was somehow connected, not necessarily of this religion, but knew of it or associated with?
She probably knew of it. I guess if it was one of the more popular religions, it probably would have been active in the town.
Mm-hmm.
Probably some of the council members who decided to put her to death may have been part of this church.
And that would make a lot of sense, right? Because this was one of the commonly, believed or commonly followed, practiced religions, and your mother was probably on the wrong side of it.
Yeah.
But again, I don't want to say anything, if you'd like to take that, that's great. If not, I'm willing to, we don't.
Is this, I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
Is this book written in a language we understand, or is
yes, it would be written in a
okay.
in a common language that you could read. Yes. Anything, Philippe?
I would like to look around, perhaps to make one roll.
Yeah.
To see if, other than afflicted, are there any other monsters in this chapel?
I'd say you don't even have to roll for this. Looking around, you don't see any. Now, this is unfortunately, this is what the society has become. This is a question of opinion. What do you see as a monster? Do you see afflicted, those who have the cosmic sickness, as monsters? Because if you do, then there are several others there in the building, in the chapel. And you can recognize them simply by the fact that their skin is covered, like from toe to head, in leather and cloth. Because at the time, whether this is true or not, this is something completely separate. But at the time, it is thought that the cosmic sickness is spread through contact, which it may or may not be. That's something we will learn as we go. But you can tell that there are afflicted here. So if you consider them to be monsters, then yes. Looking around, you don't see anything beyond that. There might be one or two others, like in the background somewhere. They're like guarding other doors or something like that.
Got it. Just making sure there aren't other types of monsters here.
No, not that you can.
Those are my digs.
Right. With that, let's go back to Francois, who is being essentially he's in the center of a pincer movement here, with one behind him and two in front of him, and the taller one is taking a look at that little cipher that you had in your hand just a moment before.
Yeah, did you want me to describe what that cipher looks like?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's like a quartz crystal. It's purple,
Mm-hmm.
but it's very fragile. If you just squeeze it really hard, it crumbles into dust,
Mm-hmm.
and that dust kind of covers you and does the blinking effect.
Oh.
So that every time you get hit, a little bit of dust flies off and you blink. And if you get hit after about 24 hours, as dust or sand is wont to do, it is pretty much fallen off of you. That's why the 24-hour lifespan.
So,
but it's a quartz crystal in his hand, and he's checking
looking it back and forth, turning it over in his hands. Then he slips it into his pockets. And now I'm going to say it is a he as he steps forward and folds up a portion of his mask, exposing what's clearly the jaw of what seems to be a male humanoid.
The beard gives it away.
There's a bit of scruff maybe on there. Are you going to say anything or do anything, or you're going to allow them to sort of take charge here?
Something about letting them guide me makes me nervous. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm a mystical adept who consorts with the dead. Part of that mystical descriptor is that I can use hedge magic as a free action. So that I'm going to do that and then do my actual action. So hedge magic, I can make plates wash themselves, that kind of bibbidi-bobbidi-boo stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to have every customer with their cafe, with their, mug and their saucer, all that is going on the floor.
I like,
All at
wow,
once.
this is cool. Okay. I'll just, you know what? You're not even going to roll for this. This is cool. That's going to happen in just a moment. Now tell me that's your distraction, I assume, right?
Yes.
What do you really want to do?
All the customers, oh,
Yep.
my latte,
Yep.
What I really want to do is, my next cipher is like a temporary tattoo. It's like henna.
Yeah.
Here, and if I rub it, it starts to glow.
Okay.
And the name of that cipher is Attractor.
Yep. Can you tell me what the tractor does?
It allows me to grab one item that's my size or smaller and pull it.
Pull it.
And it's basically just a magical, telekinetic.
What
grab,
are you pulling then?
Like a force yank.
Mhm.
So I'm going to yank that my other cipher back out of his pocket.
Oh, okay, got it. All right. Where is this cipher? The
Attractor?
Yeah.
It's the henna tattoo.
Oh, okay.
On my wrist.
So you have to rub it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I rub it.
You raise your arm and you begin to rub and there's nothing there. And when that happens, on the mirror, on the same arm of the adversary that is looking you square in the eye now through the mask, they pull down their robe and you see the same henna tattoo on their skin. And they begin to rub it back and forth. And something jumps out of your pocket. Can you tell me what that thing would be?
That would probably be my throwing knife.
And your throwing knife, just at the last moment, the humanoid opens his hand, catches it, holds it up in the air, not unlike the crystal just a moment before, looks it over, slips that into his pocket. And then behind you, make a defense roll, because with that distraction, as all of the plates around the cafe come crashing down, you yourself, and as your knife goes into your adversary's hand, you're distracted. Someone comes up from behind you, and it feels as if you're being put into a large bag. Go ahead and make a defense roll if you want to.
Yes.
You're not even quite sure what you're trying to get away from.
A 16.
With a 16, unfortunately, you got cloth, just an immense burlap, rough cloth that is thrown over you. And you fall backward. And as you fall backward, what you look at is the rotten flesh of a humanoid creature. And you fall through the creature as if you were falling through its spirit. And you can see some sort of residue as you fall through it and disappear. And as you look out, you're falling through the sky, but you're falling through a sky of darkness. You are outside the wall now. In fact, you're not even on the planet Orbis Terra anymore. You are in a realm that you would recognize and know as the macabre. And the macabre is the interdimensional webbing between reality and unreality. And what you know at this moment is that you're somehow being transported somewhere, but where, you're not sure. And why and how, again, you're not sure. But you continue to fall. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go to a break. And we'll catch up with our heroes in about 10 minutes. So I hope you'll stick around. We're going to do some audio checks, make sure that the audio is working. Hopefully it is. Everybody out there, cross your fingers that it is working. We're going to check it, make sure that it is, and that we've solved our problems. So we will be back in 10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. All right, everyone. We are back, and I am happy to report we each some of us checked the audio. It looks like the audio, or I should say it sounds like the audio is okay. At least 2 of us have confirmed it. I guess we're going to knock on wood, or maybe pressed cardboard is maybe really what my desk is, and just hope that it holds up for the rest of the game. So when last we left our heroes, it was Francois very specifically who had been engulfed, or maybe swallowed is a better word, by the cloak of one of his adversaries in the Dome Cafe, and he was actually in the process of falling through the macabre. In the style of Barnum and Bailey, the Ringling Brothers, I am not going to take us to Francois. I'm going to take us back to Philippe, Henri, and Ile, who are within the underground chapel at this point. So to sum up, they have just arrived. Daniil has brought them here, and apparently there is some sort of late-night recruitment meeting that is being held by the Seraphinian revolutionaries. It is in an underground chapel. There are pockets of new recruits mixed with relatively seasoned veterans, and they are awaiting the beginning of the meeting. So I'm going to give Philippe, Henri, and Ile a chance to kind of catch up and maybe check out what's going on around them. And if they have nothing to do, then we'll just fast forward to the first event of the meeting. So would you Philippe, Henri, and Ile like to check anything out? Talk to anyone? Inspect the other guests? Inspect the facility? Anything else?
Yeah, I just want to ask Ile, you still have that cricket?
Yes, Gerald is safe and sound.
He hops up onto your, up your
here.
sleeve and then onto your shoulder.
And he can find what? Abominations?
He soothes
He
monstrosities.
soothes monstrosities.
Might be handy to have him around to identify monstrosities, because I have a feeling they're all around here.
Yeah, I'd like to give Gerald a little snack.
I like this. So
I don't know what he prefers to snack on, but
I don't
maybe I
know.
picked up on something.
you could give him some
that he
rations or
likes.
something you have. What do you think he wants to eat?
I don't know. He really liked beer.
That's right. That's right. I've forgotten about
I don't know.
that. Yeah, maybe you open up a flask of some alcohol that you keep, and he hops into it and swims around a
Yeah.
little bit, comes out,
Yeah.
hiccups, and then are you going to sort of let him roam free at this point?
I guess. I mean, he's not like on a leash or
No.
anything.
I mean, he has basically been kind of following what you want him to do within
Mhm.
certain parameters. But
Yeah.
now this is something that you might think about. And again, I don't mean to sort of steer you in any particular directions, but if he hops out and is walking around among everyone, there's a chance. I mean, you might sort of worry he's going to get stepped on.
Yeah, I'm worrying.
So
currently
I'm not
he's
sure
going to
what-
get stepped on
yeah.
or snatched or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you want to sort of deploy him.
So I wouldn't necessarily be like, go forth, little buddy, but I'd probably just, kind of keep him in my hand, just sort of let him see what's going on,
Mhm.
but make sure that I am protecting him and I don't want to call attention to myself or to Gerald.
Yeah. Okay. So then in that case, what about Henri and Philippe? Now, I guess, Ile, you're walking around, or are you going to stay in a certain area, or?
I'm kind of sitting in this little pew, I guess. Maybe sort of ask, where's the bathroom kind of thing, and walk around.
They look at you
Looking
funny.
for the
Just
bathroom.
completely look at you funny. Bathroom? This
Just try to, be discreet.
lady, this is the 1500s.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not gonna just pop a squat in the pew, right?
Yeah, well, most likely no.
there's some sort of facilities around.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to.
Yes. Okay. So
I saw a bucket.
yeah, there
Okay,
are
where's the
like you
bucket,
could
man?
like yes, actually like maybe a few not blocks, but I never thought I'd be describing this live on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, for a role-playing game for a game I intend to kickstart. But yes, there are some troughs maybe where you can like do your business. And if you
Yeah.
want to sort of
I'm not actually going to do anything. I'm
Right.
just using it as an excuse to walk around and wander around.
So with that, you step up and you start, I sort of assume, circulating through the room and okay. Henri, Philippe, are you up to anything? Looking for a bathroom?
No, I will find a location maybe back to the wall where I can keep an eye on as much as possible, especially our group.
Yeah. Henri?
I'm just very suspiciously keeping an eye on all the people here to try to discern which ones are recruits like us, which ones are cultists, which ones might be armed, and that sort of thing.
Okay. So let's take these in order, but we'll go with the lay last because that may be, I don't know, that's the one that may be the most revelatory, shall we say. So Philippe, looking around, as you find a corner, a quiet corner for yourself, and those old instincts kind of kick in. Even though you're underground, even though you're in unfamiliar territory, you are far more used to being like out smashing and destroying things. You're not so used to you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I don't mean to state how your character is, but you're maybe not so used to observing. You're more used to just smashing it and thinking about it later, or leaving things to be thought about up to other people. Is that fair to say, or?
Absolutely.
Okay. You awkwardly try to look as casual as possible, looking around the room. And you are able to discern quite a few people here based on body language. And now let's all keep in mind that everyone is wearing masks and disguises so as to protect their anonymity. There are quite a few military types here. Some young, maybe some old. This is based on your best guess, based on their body language, their movement, the way maybe they keep themselves at an angle or in an area where they can't be flanked.
Balanced weight.
Yes.
They are
The way they
It's,
go ahead.
this makes perfect sense because I am ex-military and I am here.
And you would make a very good prospect, a very valuable member or addition to the revolution, someone that may or may not be on the inside. Now, whether or not these people are on the inside, you're not really sure, but you probably pick up that there are 4 or 5 here in the room. If you want a better look at them, you're going to have to start walking around and kind of like checking them out. And one thing to remember, which you would remember, is that if you can pick them up, they can probably pick you up. So I'm not sure if you want to change your demeanor at all, or, just try to give it more of a drunken kind of like, sort of feel, or if you want to maintain your sort of crisp military movement.
That is who I am. I will maintain my rigid status. I will not walk around either because
Just
I am
keeping
so
your
big.
eye.
I will bump people. I will hit them with my hammer. Easiest just to stand still
Mhm.
and listen.
All right, Henri, how about you? So I know that you were looking for, and I apologize because I'm keeping track of 4 different things going on here. You were looking
right.
for, again?
I was looking to just to like try to size up everybody and see who are recruits,
That's
who
right.
might be muscle, who might be armed, that sort of thing.
Taking a look around, what you get, Your impression of the room is that this is a very, very wide swath of brave society. You get that there are some rich, quote unquote. There are some poor. There are some middle class, which are very few, to be honest. Mostly it's a few rich and mostly the poorer classes that are here. There are working class. There are a few that you suspect might even be with some of the outcast churches that are no longer in favor. You also detect and can tell that there are a few people here representing or perhaps from the afflicted that are here. Maybe not so obviously showing their mutations or showing their the changes, shall we say, in their body. You also detect a few people that are merchants, a few people that are just simply maybe middlemen, middle women as well. The impression you get in general is that this is again, a large swath of the community. There are people from all walks of life here. If you want anything more specific than that, you'll have to sort of, like Philippe, start doing some rolling. But for now, that's your general impression. I'll let you think about that and chew on it and come back to it
I'll
in
think
just a
about
moment.
that, but I think for now that's okay. Yeah.
And Elaine, moving on to you, as you walk around, how are you walking around? Are you just like, where's the bathroom? Is it over here?
Well, I'm not like, asking everybody, where's the bathroom? But, I'm just like, I more use that as an excuse to Danielle, who probably is like, oh,
Right.
girls, they're always looking for the bathroom, kind of thing. So, so he's not like, oh, wait, but we're about to get started, but just like, no, let's,
Moving
I need to explore.
Moving around through the room and maybe circulating in certain areas. Geralt doesn't seem that interested in what's going on. Or at least I should say, he doesn't seem that interested in other members of the group. Until you get to some of the corners of the room as you circulate. And there's a rather tall figure, male or female, you're not really sure, in a mask that keeps their head kind of pitched down. That Geralt seems kind of interested in. He's hopping, like you're keeping him in the palms of your hands, and he's hopping in that direction as if he were going to go and start, hop onto the shoulder of this man or woman, not unlike the way that he hopped onto the shoulder of Mage Laflame earlier on. And then you kind of keep going around in a circuit. You find someone else. And what you realize is that there are at least 3 or 4 agents that seem to be posted nearby the doorways or I should say the archways that you came through before. And it kind of clicks in your head. Again, you don't have to roll for this, but it clicks in your head that essentially these are guards that are posted at all of the entryways. And they're guards that have abilities to access the macabre, or abilities of magic, or abilities of the darkness. And they're there for probably a good reason. They're probably trying to screen and make sure that no one comes in that's absolutely positively not meant to be there. And that if someone does attempt it, then there's going to be some sort of a forewarning.
Okay, so they're more like guarding the people inside for people outside. They're not like guarding people from the inside.
Yes, right. So like if you were worried that everybody was being drawn into some sort of a trap and they're just waiting to keep people from getting out, that's not what they're doing. They're watching to make sure that no one comes in that's not supposed to be there. And as a matter of fact, I would add that you see people leave every once in a while, say, talk to somebody on the outside, and then come right back in. Okay. But again, under careful watch of the guard.
While I'm kind of wandering around, I do sort of make my way over to the bathroom since I kind
That
of
was your
notice these
cover
people in the
story?
shadows.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I should probably like go to whatever constitutes as the bathroom, which I'm imagining is
Yes.
like a little communal pew that everyone sits on in the back or
Um,
something.
The
I don't know.
bathroom is, ladies and gentlemen, this is not something as a game master I had anticipated, and ladies and gentlemen, this is live game mastering. This is unplanned, making it up as I go along game mastering. Because it's a chapel, the bathroom is 20 or 30 feet down, outside the chapel, down the hall. And it's a very simple area. It's an underground stream. And there are actually a few people who are squatting over the stream. But people are sort of taking care not to, look at each other as they do this. And there's relative privacy. But it's an underground stream that's coming out of the water, and you can actually see what's sort of disturbing to us as people in the year 2023, but maybe not so much to them back then. The walls are encrusted with bones, and I'm not sure if you want to go through the motions just to make it look like, or not. It's up to you.
Yeah, just sort of, I guess, mime taking care of business and then, head on back.
And so with that, you do.
If anything pops out,
No one,
no,
no one really makes, it's just, this is just another part of life. And
I don't overhear anybody like gossiping, like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe what the cult leader said the other day or something.
No. You do
Okay.
hear people talking, but it's just everyday normal talk, some whispering. People that are talking about perhaps, I can't believe I've been invited here. It's about time that something had been done about King Hugo. I don't know if I trust these people. I'm not really sure if they know what they're doing. I know they have good intentions, but whether or not I trust that they can actually make this happen, and I'm not going to, it's that sort of talk. If you want something really specific, you're going to have to make rolls for it, but you do hear, in the echoey chamber beneath. And so,
Okay.
let's go back to Philippe and Henri and ask if there's anything, since I've kind of given them some time to think, if they want to adjust or roll or look for anything in particular.
I do not.
I think I'm good too.
All right. So when Elay comes back, the three of you regroup. And now, Henri, your second question had been who's in charge, but your priority had been your first question. But now that you've kind of cleared up your first question, you notice immediately that the room, the chatter in the room grows dim as several people enter. And when they do enter, you can kind of hear the murmurs dying down, and people begin to sit and take seats there in different areas of the pews. And Daniel leans in to the three of you and says, "These are the 5 fingers of the Seraphinians, the 5 fingers of the revolution. It's rumored that they are the ones that started this particular cell in this particular city. But they're all through Frankreich." So I'm not sure if you have any reaction to this, but if you don't, I'll just go on. They move to the front of the room, and the audience meaning yourselves and the others there, begin to quiet and sit. And there's a rather dramatic pause as they step up. as if for almost effect, like it's a theatrical kind of presentation. And then one of them steps forward and begins to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, 1 year ago, we were nothing more than a loose affiliation of commoners with common grievances. Today, however, we have made our presence known. We have made our beliefs known. And now, today, the revolution has begun. Striking out in symbolic gestures across the city of Braves, in each and every precinct, all precincts, and you would all know that there are 22 precincts to the city of Braves. We Seraphinians have finally made our presence known. Our voice, our will could not be ignored, and support has already started, as we can see by the number of new members that we have here tonight. And with that, there's kind of like some hoots and hollers coming from the audience, and you're not sure if these are seasoned members or if these are new recruits. But then there's a smattering of applause that grows, and then stomping of feet on the ground. And then this character, this leader of these 5 members that have just entered, goes on and explained how today was simply a symbolic gesture. It was simply meant to catch the attention of those whose boot heel every day, every minute of our lives we suffer under. But make no mistake, the revolution has begun, and within 12 hours, we have tripled in number. And they gesture toward the audience, and you can kind of guess now that earlier on, I think I was saying, I don't remember who it was, one of you kind of felt like there was 30% of the people here were kind of like familiar with where they are, and maybe 60% or so were new to the area, or new to the revolution. And with that, each one of them in turn steps up and begins to speak. And they say a little something about what's going on in different aspects of Braves. The person who was originally speaking is talking about how there are so many merchants that are now part of the revolution, and how they intend to break, to destroy the taxes that the king places on the people. Another person steps up, and they talk about how the commoner has to struggle under the boot heels of the king and the king's council, and how slowly but surely the commoners, the common peasant, is gaining, is growing, is starting to fight back. Another person gets up, and they talk about how the churches around Braves and indeed Frankreich are starting to meet, to talk and discuss how they too can once again leverage control back from the darkness. Another one gets up and talks about how the shipping lanes are now open, and how trade with their ships, with their equipment, with their materiel, are even now being dispatched and shipped to different areas of Frankreich and to Braves to help wrestle control back. And then finally, one final person steps up, And they talk about how they intend to turn the nobility itself against the king and give it back to the people. How some members of the nobility recognize and understand the rot that infects Frankreich and the kingdom, and how the faith in the people has diminished and been slowly but surely wrestled away from them and must be given back, so that, ladies and gentlemen, we are all equals, no matter what our income, no matter what our status, our position in life. And this goes on. They each say these things. They get a smattering of applause. They get like roars of approval. While this is happening, I don't want to take up all of your time. Is there anything you like to do or observe or look for while these speeches? And Danil is there like elbowing each one of you. Yeah, that's great. That's why I signed up. That's why you're here.
It's hard to...
Is there anything that could possibly be of interest and use to Mage Barbier that's going on right now, or that has happened that I saw?
Mage Barbier's main thing was she believed that members of, well, the darkness were essentially swapping out and replacing valuable members of, well, the revolution and other parts of society, one for the next, with imposters. Looking around, you don't see any of that sort of thing. But then again, if this is really happening, that would be happening on a much deeper level. So your first impressions are, this is honestly a revolution that's going on.
Even like the one, like the people in the shadows that Gerald got a little bit excited to
you
come in contact with.
You feel like they were simple guards.
Okay.
Philippe or Henri?
The Five Fingers, they are all masked?
They are all, I'm sorry?
Masked.
Oh, yes, they are. I thought you meant masked, like they're masked together.
No, masked.
Yeah, they are all
They
masked.
have masks on.
Yeah.
Are they distinctive masks? What kind of masks are they wearing?
It's funny that you ask that. They each wear plain stained, ladies and gentlemen, I would normally have a teleprompter here. They each wear plain stained leather and cloth masks that disguise the upper parts of their faces while revealing their lower parts. Looking at them, you can see that there are 3 women and 2 men. Henri, anything?
No. I just want to see what transpires next.
They have mentioned the nobility and the king and trade. Have they mentioned the mages at all?
No. In fact, the implications of what you heard about the members or the member who mentioned the church, the implication is that the mages wrestled control away from the churches. And maybe there's a temporary alliance going on between the major churches and the minor churches where they want to wrestle control back and push the mages away.
Just a refresher. What were we asked to do here by the
So Mage Barbier
mage?
believes that slowly but surely someone, an agent of darkness, for lack of a better term, is replacing members of the revolution and members indeed of the government or of the royalty with imposters. So if you recall, going back to our very first episode, and I think a little bit of the second,
Pomeroy.
Pomeroy is not the same Pomeroy. And again, I don't want to give anything too much away, but this is still happening on the same day. Pomeroy, Philippe, you witness Pomeroy being pulled into the cloak of three darkish characters and then being ejected out almost anew.
How about that?
Let's go back to Francois. As if on cue. So, Francois, you are falling through the macabre. And you would recognize this place, but probably never having been there. You would recognize this place as something perhaps you've copied 1,000,000 times over in your textbooks or studied during your classes to make it into the Mages of the Arts Cosmique. Can you tell me in general how you would feel if you found yourself falling in space above the macabre? That's about what I thought. Very, very well stated. Very succinct, right to the point.
Can you see your house from there?
Yes, right. However, that appears to have been a dream. Because now, suddenly, you slam into the cold, wet, hard ground. And you take a deep breath, the wind knocked out of you, just trying to suck that oxygen into you. And what you get is a moist breath of underground air. Because as you look up, you're in what's clearly the ossuary that you thought you saw earlier on tonight, and yet you couldn't find when you were looking down that stairwell before. And standing over you is one of the characters that had confronted you earlier on. And they simply shake their head, look down at you, and you recognize this character as the one that took your 2 ciphers away and your knife. They reach down, actually with their left hand, and you can see that henna tattoo on their arm, almost as if they're trying to rub it in, but maybe they're not really, because they're way too much above rubbing something in. And they reach down as if to give you a hand to stand up. It's your choice to take it or not.
Yeah, I'll lift myself up
They help you up,
with the hand.
and then they turn themselves around. This way. The meeting is this way, my friend. And then they begin to take you through the catacombs. So at that point, you have a chance to ask them questions or simply follow them. They don't seem too conversational at this point, but they also don't seem like they're standing off.
You've taken some items of mine. May I have them back now, please?
They look at you. No.
This mother... Okay. I'll just follow then. I'll just follow.
So as they thread their way through the underground, the moment as you walk along, you kind of forgotten about this, but you'd forgotten about the link that you had to Ilay earlier on. But now that you're down here, suddenly the connection is back. And you can actually see as Ilay, or you see her viewpoint, sitting in the pews, looking out, and you actually, as you're walking through, you witness and hear all of the things that Ilay and Henri and Philippe were just listening to in real time as you make your way there. And you see each one of the 5 fingers of the Seraphinians as they not introduce themselves, but talk about their particular, you get the impression that they're talking about their particular aspect of the revolution. And again, you're free to say anything as you walk. This is a few minutes here to get to the chapel, which is what you...
I can't think of a single question. I just want my stuff back, and the answer to that has been no. So I can't think of a single thing to ask.
Yeah, and the character, this fellow turns back, glares at you, just shakes their head like, they have no faith in you whatsoever. They're disappointed.
All right. So just follow until we get to the chapel.
As the 5 continue to talk, Philippe, Henri, and Ile, one of you feels a tap on your shoulder, and that is Francois as he eventually enters and takes a seat, and now the 4 of you are reunited. And I don't know if it feels so good, but you're at least reunited. We'll just leave it at that. And with that, the fellow that showed you to the pew steps back and takes a seat behind the 4 of you. And you can't quite see, again, you can kind of see the lower portion of his face. But he just quietly listens. And now I'll give the 4 of you a moment to do that really annoying thing that people sometimes do. Whisper and confer and trade information if you wish.
Well, I'm sure my group is probably wondering where I've been. So I'll tell them, you know, the story of just being in the cafe and then getting jumped from behind. And I'm like, yo, this mofo jumped me, took 2 of my 3 ciphers, and then transported me here.
The mofo behind you may or may not be smiling. But is nevertheless silent.
We are not under the dome, Francois. We are somehow transported. Don't ask me how.
Well, that much I think I've gathered. When I opened the door you went through, it didn't lead here. It led to just like the back room, the stock room of the coffee shop. And this ain't that. So where we are, I couldn't tell you any more than you can tell me. Actually, Henri, do you know where we are?
We're about a mile to 2 miles from the dome in another arrondissement.
Wow.
Yes. But what's frustrating me is these revolutionaries talk a big game, but they haven't addressed us yet. They haven't told us what they want us to do.
Lots of propaganda.
Yeah.
Maybe not so loud.
No.
Don't want to get kicked out.
You guys, is that about it? This is your chance.
Where's Daniil at this point?
Daniil is
with us.
He's
sitting
like
with us?
eagerly. He's sitting on the edge of.
He's
his,
applauding.
Yeah, he's sitting on the edge of his seat and just like, isn't this great, everybody? Guys, isn't? Oh, look, see, they brought you too. This is fantastic.
Francois, can you scan the cult leader? See if they're a magic user.
You keep calling him a cult leader. He's a revolutionary, man.
But
I feel,
I
know, but I feel like same thing. Revolution, cult, same thing. I like your instincts though.
This sounds like a cult.
We're meeting in a church. It's,
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
probably
we're
leaning in
We're all
that
masked.
direction.
surrounded by afflicted. I mean, it's
In an ossuary.
Everyone is wearing a mask.
Yeah. What are you up to, Francois? Are you going to scan?
Yeah, I'll use my sense magic at him.
At him, or there are 5. Can you, does it have to be directed only at one, or can it be at, like, in the general area?
The area is limited. I mean, are the 5 of them standing together
Kind
on the
of.
on the podium?
Yeah, I mean, they're
Okay.
they're kind of like back in front of the altar.
Okay. Then yeah, that would work.
All right then. So you've got scan. Now tell me anything else.
There's nothing that helps me boost that.
Well,
I can
you-
hold up a candle.
No. Again with the candle. Do you want to apply several levels of effort?
How many levels? 3.
Wow. You're pulling in the big guns. Okay.
Yes. And then that just leaves me to roll because I can't
Yeah.
really. I don't have anything but the
Yeah.
ability and the effort.
Yeah.
Could I assist with
Good.
investigative skills perception?
I like it. Maybe you guys are kind of conferring and saying, well, I noticed this and I saw that. So
I rolled a 10.
with a roll of a 10, what you get is the sense that there's a bending, a warping of space-time around one of these 5. But it's kind of shifting. First it's here on this one, then it's on that one, then it's on the other one, moving back and forth. And what you realize that you're looking at, or perhaps I should say you're not looking at, is some sort of negative space of space-time in which a creature is trying to hide itself. And by hiding itself, it's actually you're able to sense that the creature's hiding itself, but which one it is you're not 100% certain of. One of these 5 is not human. And now as you look from one to the other, making eye contact, and it's shadowy eye contact where all you can kind of see is the glistening of the wets of their eyes as they look back and out at the audience. One moment you think it's this one. Then you think it's that one. No, wait, that one seems to be looking at you. Does it know that you're scanning it? Wasn't the whole point of this that Mage Barbier didn't want to come here because a mage would stick out like a sore thumb? Which one is going on here? And then, if you don't mind, unless you want to tell me otherwise, you cut the connection because you're a little worried that maybe you might give them a little too much time and one of them might pick you out. And so then they actually do shift into a kind of recruiting process where they begin to bring the new members up. And it's nothing religious. It's nothing cult-like, Henri. It's just a simple process where each one of these people steps into line, takes a vow, puts their hand on a certain book, maybe a manifesto or something like that, and makes a vow to promise to serve, to bring the people into the light. Each one of them. And now members of the crowd are starting to get up and they're starting to form a long line. And Daniil is like, oh, that's like you four have to, please. Yes. Come on up. Please join us. And it's up to you 4 to decide whether or not.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
You get into line.
Get in the
Alain,
line.
Francois, Philippe.
I mean, ideologically speaking, I'm sort of like everybody's awful. You know, king or revolutionaries, everyone sucks. But if I'm part of their group, It's easier to spy on them. It's easier to collect
Step up
information.
into line right behind Henri.
No,
How about
I'm, you
Francois,
know,
Philippe?
I try to look very moved, and let's do this, brothers, kind of thing.
And sisters.
And sisters, brotherhood of
And
humanity.
those in between.
Everybody.
Francois, Philippe, what are you feeling?
Was Francois ever able to get a mask? Or is he here?
He's
Yes,
wearing
he's
the
wearing a
fox
fox
mask.
mask.
I had
Oh,
the
okay. He's
fox.
got the fox. Okay.
He's just the only one.
No, that's what I was thinking. Like,
No.
Or he's like this.
Where did this guy come from?
Right. Or he's doing this. Francois, Philippe. There are a few people, it looks like, whose sponsors or whatever you want to call these people, who are kind of like, come on, this is it. So you wouldn't be alone, I guess is what I'm saying, is if you hesitated or didn't go up there. But I'm not going to say what's going to happen to you.
I'm not joining Jack until that dude gives me my stuff back.
He just leans forward. No.
Then we have a problem.
Philippe?
I am thinking on it
Okay.
and watching Henri and Elay
Henri and Elay, like cartridge, like bullets in a
Yeah,
cartridge, just like
that was-
one at a
They
time.
moved quick.
Everyone's going up, up, up. They put their hand on. They make the vow, and it's not. Again, I want to emphasize here: it's not a cult, or it doesn't feel like a cult. This feels like revolutionaries being sworn in for a war.
So we're not getting like little parasites injected into our.
You're not
brains
drinking any
yet.
Kool-Aid or anything like that.
Mhm.
And it's very, very simple, and actually you shake the hands of the 5 fingers.
As I'm
of them.
shaking the hands, do I get a sense of which one it could be?
Not
the
unless
one
you
that
want to
was
make
sort
a
of
roll.
hiding?
Not unless you want to make
Okay.
a roll.
Let's make a roll.
So tell me how you're doing this. This is one way to end a campaign.
Oh no! I don't want
I'm
to
just-
end it.
I kid.
Okay. Okay.
Just
yeah,
so you
I'm just
know, I just interviewed on Monday Rick Hines, who is responsible for a campaign. This is not a product plug. It's just, this is a cool idea. Who actually wrote a campaign book called The Black Ballad, which is based on what happens to characters after they die. So maybe if you die, I'll just use Rick's campaign to help us out.
Matt, am I gonna die?
No. So, well, I can't say nothing. I have nothing to say.
The dice will tell you.
The dice
Matt!
are, I don't, it's not my job is only to interpret what the
You're
dice
making me
say.
nervous.
I've been trying to kill my character for weeks now.
Yeah,
I like my
Matt, been able-
character. I don't want to die, Matt.
I can't say nothing. I said too much already. So you would like to scan. What are you using here?
I'm just, I guess, well,
Garden
now
variety
I'm not sure if I
perception.
want to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Would perception be better, or would
Do you have-
identifying or seeing through tricks and
Why don't
illusions
you do
before
this?
illusions and lies?
Okay. It sounds like seeing through tricks and illusions would be your best bet at this point.
Okay.
Now tell me if you
Okay.
want to use effort,
Yes.
1 or 2 or 3.
Given my luck with dice rolling, I'm going to go for a 3.
Okay.
I'm not very confident now.
Do you have an asset of some sort?
A mirror
Yeah, Gerald.
Yeah.
or Gerald?
Gerald would count.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I have Gerald.
Yeah.
I have the mirror that
Yeah.
I used earlier.
I'll
whatever
count.
was in the flame.
The mirror was specifically because you're trying to reflect something back. So I'll count Gerald.
Yes.
So let's count it
Let's
at
do
5.
Gerald. Come on, buddy. We're counting on you.
He's on your
Okay.
shoulder.
Okay. But he's, hidden so that way they can't see
Mhm.
him.
Yeah, he's maybe like
Yeah.
hidden like
Under
behind
your hair.
neck or under your
Yeah,
hair or
yeah, yeah.
something.
He's just
Yeah.
he's just in this little mess of hair.
Mhm.
Okay. Wish me luck, boys.
You got it. You got this.
I at the top.
No.
Ooh,
No.
use
Okay.
XP.
I rolled
It's a-
a 2. I am using XP to reroll.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's try this again. All right, 16. Okay.
All right.
That's a little better. Oof.
With a roll of a 16.
You die.
That's right. You needed a roll of 37
No.
to at least not be maimed. You step up to the first person, who seems as if she is the leader. She's dressed fashionably, but modestly. They move with grace and care, but have seemed kind of aloof as they spoke. They have an air of wealth and privilege. She has an air of wealth and privilege about her. But when she extends her hand to shake your hand, that is all betrayed by her hands, which are covered in calluses and scars. And she gives you a firm handshake and thanks you for your trust, and thanks you for your support, and thanks you for joining. And then that's it. You move on to the second person. And this gentleman is dressed in a simple and utilitarian fashion. His clothing is threadbare, but well kept. He's short in stature, but he kind of moves with confidence of an older man. And he kind of moves in a way that reminds you a bit of a shop clerk or like a merchant. And he wears a black mask that conceals his face. And when he reaches out to your hand, he's got older, soft hands like tissue paper. And he shakes your hands kind of in the way that an older gentleman might do for like his granddaughter or something. And he's maybe not so eloquent, but he just thanks you. And you can kind of see through his mask in the shadows. He's got kind of rheumy eyes that are watery and red. You move to the next person in line. And this is a very petite, but kind of solidly built, sturdily built woman. And she's dressed in a very workmanlike fashion. And you guys don't have to write this down. I'll let you know later what this is.
Okay. Thank you.
She wears a black mask, kind of concealing her face. And when she reaches out to grasp your hand, she grasps it with the firm sort of grip of someone who's done quite a bit of work in her time. But her hands are not calloused like the leader of this group. And she just thanks you. It's very simple. Now there are 2 figures left, or I should say 2 of the 5 fingers left. The next one in line is a rather plain-looking man who looks like they're wearing the clothing of a farmer, or the sort of clothing that you would get from someone that works from dusk until dawn. But your look at them is that this clothing is too clean. It's too carefully chosen. Not really very practical. That's your immediate sort of thoughts. Like the clothing isn't quite threadbare. It's not worn down. This is like a costume almost. And your immediate impression is that this man is wearing this costume to throw others off. And he reaches out to grasp your hand. And before your hand can connect, and I'd like to remind you that there's one more person after this, a female member. She's greeting maybe Henri, or I think because Henri was ahead of you in line. As he reaches out, you can see a ring on his finger. And that ring is the familiar symbol that you saw before, that two lines like an H, but with a second slash across the center. And just before his hand reaches yours, and you can kind of almost feel the hairs on the back of your neck start to stand up, and you sort of think to yourself, this is a mistake. I should not have shaken his hand. Someone yells, "They're here! They're here! They're here!" And he looks up, and maybe you look up, and your hands miss. But there's definitely almost a shock that passes, if we knew what electricity was in this era. There's a sting that passes between your hand and his hand. And everyone looks up. And crawling slowly into the room, as people step back and make way for them, are creatures known as praying pauls. Small little skeletons, 4 or 5, maybe 3 or 4 feet tall, that seem innocent and harmless. Their teeth chattering. Looking around, they begin to crawl and climb. People step up, stand, looking around, raising their hands, as if to say they had nothing on them. And these praying pauls, and now there are at least 5 or 6 of them, 7 or 8, now there are more, people raising their hands as if to say, I have nothing, it's not me. Begin to poke around and look into the pockets of the guests and the attendees here. No one touching them, no one looking directly at them. And you hear this fake farmer curse. And he freezes, and you freeze, Ulay. Now, what would any of you like to do at this point?
Wig out.
You're just gonna try and get out of there?
No, I don't know.
We don't know what they're searching for, right?
Well, why don't you check? You may, some of you, do any of you have knowledge of the macabre or knowledge of the darkness or knowledge of...
I have identifying and understanding the supernatural.
I like it. I'll
I
go
have
with that.
interdimensional knowledge, but not the macabre.
So, Francois, these are creatures that are nicknamed praying pauls. And they're creatures that haunt. They haunt cemeteries. They haunt places where they're called into being when enormous masses of people die. And they form out of the darkness. And they simply pray for the dead. They stand over the dead, protecting them. And they typically guard the dead as well. And these praying pauls are most likely looking for those that have offended or upset the dead. So as they climb through the chapel. They're now walking on the ceilings. People raise their hands as if to say they have nothing, they've done nothing, they came here in a manner that was respectful and reverent for the dead. And they search in pockets, looking, climb on top of people, and it's kind of freaky to watch. It's almost like they don't see the humans. They're just sort of picking through their hair, pulling their hoods down. And now there are probably like over a dozen of them in the room.
I would grab my teammates and say, I don't know what happened while I was outside, but if you guys picked up anything from a grave or off a dead body, you need to drop that right now.
So I didn't take anything from a dead body. I made sure it was not from a dead body. It was just like on the ground somewhere. Should I be worried? You did say I froze up.
There are now probably like 24 of them in the room, 3 or 4 feet tall each. They look like small skeletal children. Several of them are forming a perimeter now, and they're kneeling and praying, and they're bowing their heads. And then the ones on the outer perimeter begin to kind of hum and sway back and forth.
These are largely harmless, Francois?
I wouldn't risk it. Especially considering the number.
Okay,
I would say if you pulled something off of a tombstone, drop it on the ground now.
So off the record, above the table.
Mm-hmm.
So, hi, Eric, Francois. Should I be worried? Give him what you know about my situation.
I mean, I think you're probably safe, but why risk it?
True. I mean, I don't even know what the cipher is.
Right. It could be the dumbest cipher in the whole book.
Or it could be.
It
could be something that
or it
would
could be
win
really
the game.
cool.
The cipher is
Right.
win game immediately.
So
right.
if this is perhaps a problem, you have options to drop, hide on someone else, or trigger. Really, that's how we see things.
Right.
Right. And also, if you drop it, can you not just pick it back up? Like, if it's not a problem for the praying Pauls,
It's not a
drop
lot
it
of
at your
time
feet.
to have all this discretion. They're starting to
Right,
crawl
no.
around, and they're slowly making
Okay.
their way up toward
if
the
they're not
front.
offended, you
So-
can just pick it back up. But if
So-
they are offended by it and it's on you, we might
Okay,
be dying.
so I'm going to show my reverence for these creatures by making way and very surreptitiously and discreetly dropping whatever the cipher is into a potted plant growing in the
moment
side
you
there.
drop it out of, like, they all sort of perk up, their heads
Oh,
go
no.
in your direction, and then one of them just fires itself as if it were from a cannon in your direction, grabs it, and then runs out. But they're still searching as if there's one more.
Okay. Damn it.
Feels like that might have been a smart choice.
It also feels like that might have been something important, but it's okay. Easy come, easy go.
I don't know if anyone else would like to.
I will unhook my hammer from my back.
He feels it's coming.
So, Henri,
I know
they're
Henri.
starting to walk.
I'm going-
Go ahead.
I'm going to pull my third cipher, ready to activate that.
What's your third cipher?
Armor reinforcer.
You feel it immediately dissipate and shift off your body.
That guy is
And
such
there-
a tool. I
There
hate that
in
dude.
the
I mean, I
views.
don't know what you were expecting with two of these things happening before.
He's on
that,
you.
and
He's got an
sitting
hour.
right behind you.
He's got an hour of stealing every cipher he wants from you. I'll talk about it later, but you'll figure it out. I don't know if I want to ask Henri. Henri,
Yeah.
are you completely aware of what they're looking for right now? Do you understand?
No, not really.
So, Henri, you had picked up a cipher.
One of the ciphers, right?
They are probably here to collect.
Like as a tribute.
Out of respect for the dead, I don't want to say too much, but they're searching through and they're starting to sniff around in a manner of speaking, and they're making your way toward you. And they're climbing over pews.
How many of these guys are they?
Over a dozen.
Yeah. I mean, I have a gas bomb.
You want to throw a gas bomb in a revolutionary meeting?
In a
And
closed space
against a
underground.
skeleton in a closed space.
Right.
This is
Against
the
skeletons
Cypher
that
equivalent
don't
of
breathe.
casting Fireball in an enclosed space. It's up to you.
You know what I'll do? I'll reach for the cipher and I'll toss it.
At them?
Not toss it. No, I won't toss it. I will slide it under the pews.
The moment you reach for it and pull it out, that same thing happens where skulls all across the meeting room turn toward you, and one of them fires itself out as if it were from a cannon, grabs it out of your hands, and then runs out of the room.
Okay.
And then immediately they all kind of bow quietly, place their hands together, and the praying Pauls begin to back out very quietly.
Oh man.
And so the rest of you begin...
Oh, that was a tease.
Yeah.
Hey, there's all these ciphers you guys can take.
Well,
But if you keep them, you're going to die. It feels like we were just about to die.
And you don't even know what they are.
That's right.
But that's
No, it's okay. But this was still valuable because
So-
we got
well, and
weird feelings from these people.
Elaine, it's probably worth mentioning that fake farmer Bob didn't seem to like
So,
having them here.
The next
That's is also true.
person in
I
line,
did
without
notice
giving
that.
you guys too much time to talk, I feel like I'm talking to fourth graders right now. A young, you can tell by her skin, muscular, dressed in kind of, again, a workman-like fashion. But moving in a powerful fashion, she raises her hand to you. She's the next in line, Ile, and she takes your hand and shakes it and thanks you. And then meanwhile, the fake farmer is now, his gaze has been directed at the next person behind you in line, and he shakes that person's hand, but maybe gives you a second look.
I sort of like turn my head so he only sees like the side of my wolf mask and just like carry on.
So this younger woman, you can kind of see that she's got scars on her arms, on her forearms, and across her hands. These are different than the thick calluses that you saw on the very
Are
first
these
person.
from work or from another means?
They look like you would have to roll for that. I mean, you can roll really quickly if you want to.
I'm
Do
just
you want to
curious.
sort of figure out? It's hard to say. It doesn't look like they were self-inflicted, if that's what you're asking, or from like
Okay,
any
I
sort of
mean,
like,
Partially, but maybe it's also in a fight or
It doesn't.
something.
It would be hard to say. It doesn't look self-inflicted. I'll just say that. They're a little
Okay.
jagged and rough.
Okay.
so just I was ahead of her, right? So
Yeah.
I met these people one thing before.
Yeah. If you
All right.
want, we
And-
can retcon and say that you were looking. I just took it as Ile was actually making a roll.
Yeah,
to
no, I
sort
know
of-
she was the one that was like trying to discern which one was
Yeah.
the fake, right? So, but so I just went and shook their hands, not knowing
Yeah.
anything different.
That's what
Yeah, okay.
That's how I took
Yeah,
it.
no, that makes sense.
So Francois and
sense.
Philippe, you're the last two in the pews.
Is it possible to just move into the area where people have already shook hands
Yeah.
to make it look like I have gone through the line.
Everyone just stares at you. They just know. They're whispering. They're like, this loser. These two
Philippe
guys.
turns around. Peace be with you. Peace be with you. Starts shaking everybody's hand.
everyone.
Among with you all be
Yeah.
peacefulness.
And also with you.
And now
All.
there's discussions about the meeting continues, and now people sit down and everyone's welcoming everyone into the fold. And there's talk about what went right with today's demonstration. There's talk about how to make a bigger impact in the future. There's a little bit of frustration, and Daniel apologizes for the fact that they were not able to take the provost today. And there's also discussion over what to do about the captured members of the Seraphinian revolutionaries. And if you recall, there were like 3 or 4 that were taken by the Bustarak services and the Darkites that were working, they were embedded within them. And they begin to sort of discuss all of these things. And eventually the meeting breaks up, and there's great applause. And unless there's something you kind of want to do or say or know specifically, he begins to lead you back in the direction that you guys came. Is that agreeable to everyone?
So I'm just going to call him Farmer Bob because it's perfect. So with Farmer Bob, do we see anything else happening with him? Did he leave? Is he still being like, hello, all you fellow farmhands?
You can make a roll for this, but he does seem like he's pretty well integrated into the group. And other than this moment of like electricity, just metaphorically speaking, between you and he, and the ring that you saw, you don't get much.
Okay. I don't recognize him, do I?
No.
Or did I?
I don't know. You wouldn't have
Okay.
recognized him.
Okay.
And so with that, you're allowed to sort of go your own way. You're told that there will be another meeting in another few days. We don't have to say exactly when that meeting is. We can kind of like leave that vague at the moment. Daniil is very excited to have brought 4 new recruits, even though Philippe and Francois were being a little bit of a bummer. But he's like, don't worry, Philippe and Francois, trust me. It's okay. I understand. I was a little hesitant too at first, but this is going to happen. This is really going to affect you. You're going to be excited by what you see. We've got another meeting in a few days. We're going to talk more.
That sounds good.
And Francois, I'm not sure if you are watching or paying attention, but the fellow that took your ciphers, your your dagger, and a lot of your pride, you're keeping an eye on this character, but they kind of fade into the darkness and disappear. And then eventually, Daniil takes you back to the same spot where you walked up the stairs, or where you go back up the stairs. You feed yourselves up. You emerge, and now several hours have passed. The cafe is quiet. There's someone that nods to you, perhaps the owner of the dome, looks in another direction as if they don't even see you there. And then the 4 of you are allowed to go your separate ways and disappear out into the darkness of the night. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think that we will end tonight's adventure. I think our heroes have earned a well-deserved rest. I do so hope that the audio was completely fine for tonight. I'm going to go back and check. It looked like it was at the halftime show, A-OK. We will be back in 2 weeks. Thank you very much. If you've watched tonight, please do think about liking, subscribing, and sharing. Sharing really helps. Getting the word out really helps the channel, and I do very much appreciate it. I think my players are doing an awesome job. I'm really excited by our game so far. And it would be really great if as many people as possible could see what they're doing. So to all of you out there, have yourselves a great night, and have yourselves a great game, and stay safe. We will see you in 2 weeks. Good night, everyone.
Good night.